Hello everybody. I hope we are all doing incredibly well. Welcome to a stream. It's my first stream in over a week because I've been feeling rather under the weather. I'm a bit tired, a bit full of cold, a bit not good, a bit doing things around the house because impending baby. So I figured I'd do a little bit of a stream, but if I'm not on my game today, you guys know why. It's because I'm a very tired boy. And I'm going to do a little bit of a special sort of variant on this stream compared to normal streams, right? And I'm going to make that shush, just to sort of bring the seriousness. In this stream, we're going to be doing the Daniel Farke talk, because I feel like everyone needs to have the Daniel Farke talk at some point. However, I would quite like, if possible, for us to have that conversation in a sane way, where we're not slinging insults at me, at the chat, at other members of the chat that aren't you, at Daniel Farke himself, at members of club staff. You can point out issues, don't make it personal. That is the rule set here, because I feel like that is something that is going to sort of inevitably happen, and if it does, then I'm not going to be super happy with it, and I might start timing people out or something along those lines. But before we get into all that, I'm just going to quickly ask the question, how is everyone? Hoping we're all good. If you could, just pop a 1 in the chat. If you're not good, pop a 2 in the chat. If you're something else, just pop some words in the chat. That'll be completely fine and dandy, and we'll see how we're doing. But I think we do need to... Good afternoon, Russ. I'm doing okay, thank you. But I do think we need to have that little bit of discussion around the Daniel Farke stuff. And I'm going to... thank you very much, Russ and James, for letting me know how you're doing. Because we need to talk about what's been going on with results as of late, because I don't think we can realistically have this conversation without basing it in what's been happening recently. So, to begin, Leeds' recent run of form, we've had 5 matches, we've lost 4 of those, which isn't great, let's be completely honest. But if you look beyond that, we also drew the game before, then fine, beat Wolves, but then we're into a less good spot. So, realistically, it's 1 win in 6, which isn't brilliant, and if you have a look at the 6 matches on the whole, it's 4 points. If we're basing this sort of entire Premier League season around what we seem to be, which is that Leeds United need 1 point per game to stay up, that run of games isn't good enough. And if you have a look at the teams that we played in that run of games, you've got Bournemouth, who, yeah, fine, difficult, we were unlucky to not get more. Spurs, yeah, fine, it is a difficult one, again, but it's becoming a bit of a trend here. Then we lose 2-0 to Burnley. And the Burnley match, in my personal opinion, is where things begin to swing. Because prior to the Burnley match, we've got so much energy, we've got so much passion, we've got so much movement, we've got a lot of chance creation coming from the midfield. And then the Burnley match goes on, which, let's be honest, everyone is going to be aware was a set of points that we couldn't really afford to lose. Dropping 3 points to Burnley ain't wonderful, and you kind of need to not be doing that. So I'm just going to quickly pull up a little bit of data from that specific match, Leeds United, and then we'll delve a little bit deeper into it. There we go, the Burnley match. We created 2.4 XG there, which is a problem that we are going to have to discuss, because I think it's a fairly significant one, conceding only 0.5. Fine, the defensive side of that was good, the attacking side of it was creative, but it didn't really do enough. Then you got West Ham, which was a reasonable result, and I think the problem really starts to kick in and show its ugly face and rear its ugly head, or whatever terminology you want to use, in the match against Brighton. Because that's where there's the shift. Because in the match against West Ham, we create 1.5 XG, which says you've made a good few chances, well done, lads. That's what you need to do. Combined, against Brighton and Nottingham Forest, we created 1.2. Against Brighton and Forest, we were not good enough. And I would have loved to have said, yeah, it was fine, it was great, it was all good. But they were kind of stinkers. Good afternoon, Richard. I am okay-ish. I'm rather full of cold and plague, and I had to spend the entire morning filling up a skip that someone is meant to be picking up relatively soonish. But I'm mostly good. I'm there or thereabouts. Thank you for asking. How are you? Um, Brighton, you can maybe say, is one of those games where, fine, you might lose to them sometimes. They are a team that is either really good or really bad, and we are similarly a team that is really good or really bad. But the issue is we've not seen the really good for a little bit of a while, which is far from ideal. And then, after the Brighton match, you come to the Forest match. Brighton are one of those teams that you can typically expect to finish in the top half of the table. If I have a very quick look, duplicate this. Palace games have been moved again. I had seen that, yeah, to make sure that Palace have the space to play football in a sort of safe manner. And I shouldn't be as annoyed as I am, because we were going to get a cheeky little advantage against them there, but we're not getting it now, so whatever. But in the years since 21-22, right, Brighton have come 9th, they've come 6th, they've come 11th, they've come 8th, are currently 11th. Brighton are a team that you can reasonably expect to do quite well against. Forest, Brighton are a team that you can reasonably expect to do well against you. Sorry, the brain fog is doing its thing. Forest, on the other hand, sort of the opposite. Forest are one of those teams that you go out against and you play against them and you think, right, okay, this is where we can do something. Because at the time, they were down on vastly fewer points than we were. Pre-match, Nottingham Forest were down there vibing on 6 points, Wolves below them on 2, West Ham 10, but that sort of closes them in a little bit. And you think, right, Forest have only won 1 game this season. We've won 3. They've got a decent few draws to them, but maybe if we can come out of this with a point, they're only up to 7 points, we're up to 12, we keep a nice little gap to Nottingham Forest. Instead, we decide that we are not going to have the best possible of performances. 1 second, I'm getting a call, and it might be from the skip people. Someone called me completely by accident, so that's good. We go into the Burnley match, and ultimately, hello, Joe and viewers. I much appreciate you coming along here. We're just currently breaking down the last few weeks of Leeds United, and we've gotten up to Nottingham Forest, because all the other games you think, okay, there's maybe an argument for it. Burnley was disappointing and terrible, but Brighton, you maybe think they're a decent team. They might put up something of a fight. We'll see how that one goes. Then you get to Forest. Forest, who are about to play, have 6 points. We are currently on 11. You think, if we win this, we put an 8-point gap between the two. Delicious. If we draw this, fine. There's still a bit of a gap there, but we continue to climb the table a little bit. We'd be above Fulham right now. We'd be 15th. And 15th looks a hell of a lot better than 16th. 1 point above the relegation zone and worse on goal difference than Burnley. So you'd think that Forest is where things start to turn around, wouldn't you? No, that didn't happen at all. From the off, you had this immediate feeling that Nottingham Forest were going to do a bit better than us, because the game was a little bit chaos early on, and yet sometimes we benefit from that chaos. We can take a game by the scruff of the neck and go, cool, this is our situation now, and we are going to continue to sort of build into it, and we're going to make sure that we stamp our sort of identity on a game. And that's what happened last season at the very least. We're going to have a little bit more conversation about identity after this, because I brought it up in my video the other day, and it sticks, I think. But we weren't able to. The ball devolved into chaos. The game devolved into chaos. Forest were just all over us. We scored a goal, and I thought to myself, fantastic, this could break up the fact that they are taking control of this. 2 minutes later, we concede an absolute stinker of a goal, which is another case of they get to the byline, they cut the ball back, and there is a man in an obscene amount of space with no opposition, just sort of floating on in and going, oh, that's an open goal. I'll take that, thank you very much. And there's nothing that we can do about it. I know some people have blamed Lucas Perry for this. I'm personally not going to blame Lucas Perry because he did what he had to. What you do as a goalkeeper in that situation is you try and punch it clear if you can. You put it away from the immediate area of danger because you don't know if there is a player on you, immediately behind you, if there is a player just causing problems. Your sole focus is, let's get this ball out of the immediate danger zone, which is the 6-yard area. And in this case, you get the ball out the 6-yard area and you put it into, admittedly, still the penalty area, but you've got a lot of fucking defenders in that penalty box. And in theory, you're thinking, we've got players marked. Ibrahim Sangare, however, has allowed himself to just dance his way into the penalty box with no opposition, with no one even trying to confront the guy. And he's able to just slide it home, entirely unopposed. Which isn't really what you need to happen, to be honest, especially when, for the entire week leading into this game, I did a video on it, I think Joe did a video on it, I know other people have made videos on it. The goals that we conceded against Brighton were all situations where they attack the byline, the ball gets cut back, and there is someone in kilometres of space. Consistent issue. And you'd think that we deal with it. But we don't. And you think at half-time, you get into the changing room, and you're like, right, that wasn't good. That was a repeat of the thing that happened before. We need to do everything that we can to stop that repeating, because if we don't, then they're going to score that way again. Shortly after half-time, we end up in another situation where... Hello, by the way, guys. I am reading the comments. I'm just trying to get through the game because I have cold and brain fog, and if I don't get through the game sort of chronologically, I won't do it, and I kind of have to. But then we'll get into a nice sort of conversational bit, and I'll reset sort of the rules of this conversation because I know this gets chaotic sometimes. But they go out and they know, right, okay, this is why we conceded, let's not do that again, except it happens again. Which is... Hutchinson takes on Gudmundsson. Gudmundsson isn't able to put a challenge in. Sure, that happens sometimes. That's fine. What shouldn't happen most of the time is their most dangerous threat, Morgan Gibbs-White, who, not a number 9, but he's a 10 that sort of floats up. He's a bit false 9-y sometimes. When they're out of possession, they play something of a 4-4-2 because that allows Igor Jesus and Gibbs-White to both be in the highest possible position in the event of a turnover. That's what they love to happen. So the most threatening player on their team is, again, floating into the box. And there's 2 or 3 times during this goal, you can see Jakobiel glance over and sort of have a look, right, there's Gibbs-White. Have another look, right, there's Gibbs-White. But then when the cross is about to come in, when Hutchinson is swinging his leg back to put that ball into the box, into the danger zone, cause a problem, Beale forgets about Gibbs-White. And Beale instead pays more attention to the cross. And he thinks, if I can just deal with the cross, then that's fine. Issue is, the cross is going to go to Morgan Gibbs-White, because that's the only player in the box for them that is the genuine threat. There's Igor Jesus at the far post. Jayden Bogle's dealing with him. But because Gibbs-White's been ignored, and because Rodon hasn't noticed that Beale has just forgotten about Morgan Gibbs-White, they're able to just head it in completely free, 3 yards space all around him. Nothing Lucas Perry can do, in the slightest. I'm not going to blame the guy for that. Some people might, some people absolutely will, but that's not a Lucas Perry problem, in my opinion. That is absolutely a problem with the centre-backs. Not communicating. Problem. Not Beale's man to pick up, he's Ampadu's man. I did see this argument, right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the goal up on my second monitor, just to sort of show it off. So, Leeds versus Forest. Highlights. The men have come to pick up the skip, and they are eyeing it up, and if they have a little bit of a complaint, I may have to dip away for a moment, but I hope I don't, because that would be a problem. Right, let's go to here. Let's find the second goal. First goal, horrible still. There's the shout for the penalty. Cool. Right, so I'm going to start here, and I'm going to click through it. I'm not going to play it, just because that means that I'm not going to get killed by YouTube's copyright systems. But I'm going to press monitor 2. For some reason, that's not worked. Right, okay, I'm going to have to fix all of my Stream Deck stuff, but that's okay. Right, Ampadu, this man here, yeah? This is Gibbs White. There is no chance in hell that that is Ampadu's man. Biol is right here, okay? And I'm going to try and skip through a touch without playing it too much, but Biol glances here, make sure that Gibbs White is there. Again, he glances, he makes sure that Gibbs White is there. Gibbs White is his man, like, comfortably. He has looked at him multiple times. And in a back line, there tends to be a sort of general agreement that if you're going to pass your man on, you're going to have to do it whilst informing your centre-back partner, because if you don't do that, then that's not good. But Biol is tracking his man until here. You can see, he's following backwards until this point, where he plants this left foot here, and he goes, right, I'm going to face the cross. Issue is, that means that Gibbs White floats towards the back post, ball comes in, and he is completely unchallenged by anyone. And come to think of it, I was wrong earlier. It wasn't Bogle that had the man at the back post, it was Rodon. For me, that's not on Ethan Ampadu, purely because the entirety of the situation, Yacobiol has gone, I've looked at him, cool. I've looked at him, cool. I've looked at him, cool. And he doesn't communicate in any way, shape, or form that, okay, Ethan, you mind picking this up? And even if he did, it would be, oh, you're telling me that when the cross has already come in. Okay. For me, I ain't putting that one on Ampadu. That one, in my opinion, lies solely on the shoulders of Yacobiol, because he's the guy that's been keeping track of Morgan Gibbs White for that entire move. And if he stops tracking him, and then he scores that relatively easily, for me, it's absolutely on Biol. Why wasn't Amps closer? That's why I'm saying it's Ampadu marking nobody. Because Ampadu's a midfielder. That's the difference, in my opinion. Ampadu is, like, backing in because he's not a centre-back. He's not going to immediately become part of that back line. Instead, he's working his way back. Fine, he's doing his job. If you have a centre-back that is actively marking a person, and there are no sort of unmarked opponents near you, you start playing the positional game. That's what Ethan Ampadu's doing for me. Playing it positional and going, right, if this ball comes out, have I got the central zone of the penalty box covered? Nice, that's what I need to do. Gibbs White runs from midfield. No, I've just showed you, he doesn't. At the point that Gibbs White is running from midfield, as you've put it, Gibbs White is here. Yeah? Ampadu's over here. At this point, that's not Ethan Ampadu's problem. You skip forward a bit more. Gibbs White now entering the box, that's got to be Yacobiol. There's no chance in hell that I'm putting that one on Ethan Ampadu. You just don't. Because if there is someone actively being marked by a centre-back, and then your defensive midfielder goes, no, actually, I think I'll cover him instead, that's horrific communication. That's horrific agreement. I don't know. But then we got to move on to the third goal. Because the third goal, for me, is when it starts becoming a problem of Daniel Farke's doing. Because we go 2-1 down, sure, that's going to happen sometimes. 2-1, it's a bit of a problem, but you've got to start going at the game a little bit more, which we did. We brought on Calvert-Lewin, sort of expected. We brought on Joel Piroux, sort of expected, if you've ever seen a game that has been managed by Daniel Farke. You throw on the players that you think are going to make a little bit of an impact like that. Cool. That bit isn't the problem. That bit's fine. It's worked once or twice in the past. It's not a consistent strategy, but it works at points. A couple of minutes later, and I'm going to get the specific timings on when later, just to make sure that I've got all the information, because again, I like being accurate if I can. That's on 74 minutes. We also bring on Dan James for Brendan Aronson, which I personally think wasn't necessarily the right move to make. I think I would have sort of changed that midfield in a different way at half-time. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But 8 minutes later, we say, right, okay, cool. Beal off. Fine, I will be honest. I kind of don't particularly want Beal to start the next match because I think the issue with people popping up completely unmarked has happened since Strauch dropped out the side. But that different conversation. But we also do Jack Harrison for Gabriel Goodmanson. And in no way have we materially changed the capabilities of the players on the pitch. There is no way in which we have gone, okay, positionally, we've got one more centre-back, so we're playing three at the back. Because Ampadu, from this point, still plays as a midfielder. Because that's his role. But now you've got Jack Harrison there instead. And you've got Noah Okafor on the same flank. So you are just straight up telling Jack Harrison, you're a left back now. And I know that we sort of lost a left back unexpectedly in the summer. We weren't immediately expecting Isaac Schmidt to go, okay, I'm just out now. And we weren't able to properly sort of replace and repair and all that kind of stuff. But Jack Harrison isn't the answer. We got James Justin in, who is a defender, who is also a wing-back. Which, that's his job. He can do it on the right, he can do it on the left. Fantastic. Admittedly, he's not left-footed. Maybe there's a chance that's why it was Jack Harrison that was brought on to do the sort of whippy crossy thing. Admittedly, doing that with 8 minutes left, a bit pointless. But maybe that was the goal. So yeah, just checked. Jack Harrison is left-footed. James Justin, I believe, is right-footed. But he's reasonable at left-back, as we've seen by the fact that he's consistently played as left-back. So when it comes to a case of they have very, very, very good wingers, including Amari Hutchinson. Obviously, Amari Hutchinson is going to target that left-back that isn't a left-back. Obviously, he's going to go, I'll just dribble at this guy. Because anyone that has played football at any level, I haven't played football at a good level, but I still know this to be true, knows that if a winger or a midfielder is playing in defence, odds are they ain't as good at tackling as the left-back. So Amari Hutchinson picks up the ball, and instead of saying, right, okay, I'll slowly work my way up the pitch then, shall I? That might work. I'm going to specifically find the clip, actually. And I'm going to play it for me first, just to sort of make the point. He very, very deliberately picks up the ball on that right flank. And he takes on Harrison. Nice, he's past him. There's an opportunity to cross the ball in. And he doesn't. He keeps dribbling, because he knows he's got this incredibly clumsy winger behind him. And then he does the thing that a lot of wingers do that is absolutely frustrating, no doubt. And he cuts across the front of him a bit, and he slows down. If he's a left-back playing there, Jack Harrison is able to respond and go, okay, I will also slow down, there won't be contact, I won't make a challenge, but I won't give away a penalty. But he does. And at this point, that substitution is shown as possibly the worst decision to have been made. Overall. There are others, but that's one that I think says, oh, you just don't know what to do when things aren't going the right direction. Because that is a daft foul. That is a very, very silly foul. And people have been giving it to Jack Harrison for a good while, but for me, whilst it was a stupid challenge from Jack Harrison and whilst it didn't work, I'm not going to blame Jack Harrison so much for being played at left-back when he isn't a left-back. For me, that third goal lands squarely on Daniel Farke. And for me, the first and second, after the Brighton match, because I'm basing this on sort of the surrounding context of this comes after Brighton, but the first and second goal are identical situations to where we conceded in the match against Brighton. And the fact that there wasn't a conversation had seemingly in training, at least not one that sunk in, of don't leave players completely unmarked in the penalty area, please, lads. That's going to cause us some problems. That is where you can also lay a wee bit of the blame on Daniel Farke, because that's his job to solve. And not doing so is a little bit of a problem for Leeds United at the moment, because not doing so is just going to put so much more weight on us. And additionally, right, I'm going to be... can't be defending Jack Harrison there. It's silly, to be honest. In my opinion, if we have Joel Robles to save the bench, Robles would have done nothing. But I'm not personally going to blame Jack Harrison for being played out of position. Gabby's been great. He runs and shows passion like the rest of the team at the moment. Yeah, what was the issue with Gudmundsson? If Gudmundsson... Sorry, they've taken the skip. I had to check. If Gudmundsson has a knock or something, fine. If Gudmundsson doesn't have a knock, and the idea is we'll get someone more aggressive down that left-hand side... Some of our most aggressive football in that game of football was done by Gudmundsson picking up the ball and running the entire length of the football pitch, only to have nobody around him. Gudmundsson was one of our best players in that game. In the same way that I'm going to say that Aronson was quite good, because Aronson was really good at winning the ball back, and the statistics will show that he lost the ball a lot, but a significant proportion of that is the fact that there was just no support. There were 2 or 3 times out on the right flank where he'd take on 2 or 3 men, try and cut inside a little bit. But who are you going to pass to? Because elsewhere on the pitch, you've got a bank of 4, which is your back 4. That's fine. Bogle hasn't had time to overlap. There's not space to overlap because there's 4 or 5 players right there. And if you try and play the ball outside for an overlap, you put it out of play or directly into them. Sure. Where's your midfield? Because you've got 3 incredibly deep players as part of a midfield unit. You've got Ampadu, fine, he's a 6. That's what he does. He sits between the centre-backs when we're in possession. Whatever. Stack is increasingly playing a bit more box-to-box. Okay, cool. Longstaff, playing a bit more box-to-box, should be one of our progressive players. Why are you not alongside the right winger when they're clearly being swarmed? And that is clearly being a massive problem, because we'll get the ball out to the flanks. They'll try and dribble with it, and then they'll have to turn around and go, shit, and play the ball back 15 yards. Because you've got no one trying to progress it. At half-time, over on Joe's stream, over on Big Up, go there if you want. It's a quite nice vibe, and there's not shouting and anger like you see in a lot of different watch-alongs and stuff. But we were saying at half-time, if the midfield is very clearly not supporting the wingers or the fullbacks, change the midfield. At 45 minutes. I saw this. I'm not a coach. I've got no coaching badges. I just watch a bit of football sometimes and I play a bit of Football Manager. Joe has done his coaching stuff, was also like, no, yeah, Joe, that makes sense. Even, like, put Aronson inside. Longstaff, out to the wing, and you put on Dan James in his place. That way, you've got your 2 designated 6s, Ampadu and Stack, who are able to sit in a little bit more. And then, if Dan James picks the ball up out wide, at least you've got Aronson near him. I'm not saying Aronson plays a 10, because this is a completely different role. This is an 8 that actually bothers to go forward. Because that's what we miss right now. What we missed was someone that was like a Tanaka. We missed someone that was like a Rothwell, who is just like, okay, ball, go in, pick it up, cool. I'm a little bit further forward than we were beforehand, and now I'll try and find the next pass forwards. And this is where the conversation about identity begins. Because last season, I had a little bit of a look at this. We at least had something that was, this is something that Leeds United do consistently. And what we would do consistently was, when we won the ball, we would hit quick on the counter if it was on. That is how we got so many assists for Bogle. That is how Firpo got so many assists, because they played very transitional stuff. That's why Solomon scored a lot. That's why you got a lot of goals and assists out of James. Because we had that identity of win the ball, transition. We don't have that anymore. So we've lost that element of our identity. But on the bright side, last season, in the event that we didn't have the opportunity to transition, and if we were playing against a team that sat deep, okay, fine, at least we've got that alternative version of the ideology that is, then we control possession and we make the occasional run deep in their third that is going to drag defenders out of position and will create chances that way. Looking at the amount of the ball that we've had this season, we've lost that too. In terms of possession, this season so far, we've had more than 50% in 4 games. Against Burnley, where they let us have the ball because they could let us have the ball because, fuck it, they're 2-0 up. Why not? Against Tottenham, where, sure, yeah, we played well. That was good. We had a bit of identity. We pressed a lot. We enjoyed using possession. Everton, first match of the season. Optimism, energy, encouragement, go, press, force them into issues. Fantastic. And then against Forest, we had more than half the ball. You know why? Because they realised that we weren't doing anything with it. Because they realised they could just squeeze us. And that's the issue. Because we've also lost the identity of team that are able to hold on to the ball for an extended period of time to force a chance. That's gone. And at the same time, defensively, we are not currently solid enough to do the other side of it, which is hold on to the ball for extended periods. That's not what I was meaning. Let the opponents hold on to the... I told you I had brain fog going. Let the other side hold on to the ball for a very, very long time, but they're not going to create anything because we are playing some quite good stuff defensively. We saw that a little bit against Bournemouth. 41% of possession, they had 0.7 XG. Admittedly, we conceded late on, but that's going to happen sometimes. And the question that was raised a minute ago by Mark, saying, the question for me is what's gone wrong after a promising start? We seem to have imploded. What was the trigger? What changed? I don't know. I'm going to sort through the games sort of, what's alphabetically but time? Chronologically. There we go. And have a look. And what seems to have happened is the Burnley match broke us a little bit. Because in the match against Bournemouth, we were saying, well, I think we were better than them. And I think we're unlucky to come away with it with 1 point. Brilliant. Against Spurs at home, everyone's saying, you know what, we've lost, but I think we played better than they did. Couple of deflections, but it's fine. And then Burnley. Lose 2-0. And I think that match sort of knacked us. And I don't know how or I don't know why, but we created a decent amount in that match. But I think we still lack that intensity. We lack the pace and the movement and all that kind of stuff. And in the second half against West Ham, we lack the pace, the intensity, all that kind of stuff. And it really set in against Brighton, and now it's sticking. And there's a few things it could be, like something that I am noting that I'm not going to say is like I hate this player, because that's not who I am. I don't hate individual players for Leeds United. I never will, because they play for the club that I like. There's a couple of players, but that's mainly for Kiko Casilla flavoured reasons. But having a look at the match against Burnley, there's one fairly fundamental change to the Leeds starting lineup, which is the first place I'm going to look. Never mind. I was wrong. I didn't remember Pascal Stroke starting that one, but well. But I think in the last couple of games, for me, a fundamental shift has been Beale's come in, which means that the marking has gone squiffy, which is more of an issue in the last 2 matches. I think there's potentially an issue with management in that we're not solving the very, very visible issues. There's not, I wouldn't mind if it was a case of, it's not solved yet. We've conceded a few goals from players being unmarked, but that's because they've been really good at movement. They've not. In the match against Forest, it was literally Beale going, Gibbs White's there, okay. Oh, he's still there. Ball. And the whole ball part is what screwed us. Because the whole ball part is why he just completely lost attention on Morgan Gibbs White. Same happened for the first goal. Not specifically blaming Jakob Beale, more Longstaff, Ampadu, Stack, who should see a defensive midfielder walking his way up and going, oh, okay, completely unmarked shot in their box. Challenge them a little bit. Something that we were really, really good at last season was causing other teams problems by blocking shots. The number of shots on target against last season were pretty damn low because we would just throw bodies in the way of shots every single time, and it would work the vast majority of the time. And now we don't do that. I'm not sure why. Against Brighton, at that point, I was a little bit optimistic going into it, and I was like, yeah, maybe we can get something here. There's nothing that says we can't. And then was a performance that made me go, okay. So it turns out Burnley wasn't just a blip. It was maybe something a little bit more symptomatic. And against Forest, I was like, right, okay, we never know. Could have just had a stinker against Brighton. It could have been a few players off form at the same time, which happens sometimes. Let's see how we do against Forest. And we got pumped. The irony is we had one decent chance, and it was when we won the ball high from a decent bit of pressing, and we were able to transition to having a shot in about 7 seconds. From winning the ball to it going in the back of the net, 7 seconds. And that's the transitional stuff from last season. The stuff that I pointed at and said, that was the identity. And it still works. But for some reason, we've just lost it. We've dropped it. We've given up. And that's the problem for me. The fact that there isn't a clear idea of when Leeds United are playing, what's going to happen. Because for me, it gives a significant feeling, and this is a really, really niche point, just stick with me for a minute. It gives me a really, really niche feeling of, in my 7-a-side league, you don't sign up for a team, you sign up for the league. And in that league, you, every season, get drafted into a new team. There's a big draft at the start of the season, and you'll find out where you end up. And it will be under a new captain, new teammates that you might have occasionally played with before, but not consistently. Like new goalkeeper, new strikers, new captain, everything. Completely new. And that first game of a completely new team is how it feels that Leeds are approaching things right now. Before you're able to impact any sort of identity, any sort of ideas, any sort of stuff, it feels like you're throwing 11 players out onto a pitch and you're saying, play some football. You're not saying, these are your tactical instructions for the day, or this is how you deal with their left back, how you deal with their right back, all that kind of stuff, because that stuff, kind of important. But instead, it feels like, okay, I've picked you, go play some football. And the longer it starts to feel like that, the longer it's going to start feeling like a little bit of a rot setting in. And it's going to be a little bit tricky. And the issue that we've got right now is, in fact, I'm going to quickly search Leeds players on international duty. Okay, so the players that we've got on international duty right now, Darlow and Mahady we can ignore because it doesn't matter too much. They don't need to be part of the system. Rodon, not there. Which, if you want to fix the marking, kind of need him back. Gudmundsson, not there. Gudmundsson isn't the problem, but Beal, not there. Okay, so that's our recent starting centre-back pairing that aren't able to improve that chemistry over an international break, which we really need them to improve that chemistry because a lot of the goals we've been conceding have been from the fact that there's just been completely unmarked players. Thank you for subscribing, by the way, William Sharp. I appreciate that. Jake Howard, no idea. I'll ignore the youth ones. Schmidt, that doesn't count. Ampadu, international duty. Okay, you couldn't work with the centre-backs anyway, but you could have worked with the rest of the midfield. Not now. Gruev, gone. So there's another player that you can maybe bring in as a part of the sort of, here's how we fix the unit. He's gone. Tanaka, gone. Great, okay. There's the one progressive midfielder, and he's not here for the next 2 weeks. Dan James, gone. Okay, that's probably one of your better replacements for Brendan Aronson, who is also gone. Shit. None of our strikers good enough to make an international team right now, by the way. Which leaves you with a very, 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 very threadbare side to try and teach into having a bit of an identity over 2 weeks. And 2 weeks is not a long enough time anyway. Which ain't good. We're suffering still these relegation contracts and below par players financially in the depth of the squad and a stubborn manager. Yeah, stubbornness is a bit of a thing. As much as people have shouted it at me recently, by the way, I still don't think 3 at the back fixes things. Because I don't necessarily think... Because in possession we play with that anyway. Because Ampadu drops, so that isn't an issue. We effectively play a bit of a 3-4-3 when we've got the ball. And people saying put 2 up top, then you lose your wider options. Because if you go 3-5-2... Okay, so do you have Bogle or a right winger? That's an easy enough decision. Bogle's probably a better option. On the left, Gudmundsson, Okafor. Because if you're playing Okafor, you need him to do the defensive duties as well. If you're playing Gudmundsson, fair enough. But then where does Okafor fit in? Because we know that Okafor has the level to change the game fairly consistently. And I think we're currently being hit by issues from a few different directions all at the same time that we can't necessarily fix. On the relegation contracts thing, by the way, agreed, I would really, 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 really like it to be easier to get rid of Jack Harrison. Thanks, Victor. He's still got like 3 years on his contract. It might be more. Is it more? Is it 3 or 4? I know he signed a 6-year contract. Let's check, please. Capology. Let's have a look. Okay, it's 3, so it could be worse. It's going to be 2 at the end of this season, so that's nice. I haven't got 2 10s to play that system. I don't know if you need 2 10s or if you need to sort of pack out the midfield. So it'd be sort of 3-5-2 is the look. So 3 at the back, fine. 5, you've got your 2 wing backs, 3 central midfielders, 2 up top. You don't need the 10s, I don't think, which sort of avoids that issue. But on a positive note, Metch's goal was good. It was a good goal. It doesn't make that much of a difference because we still got roundly pumped. But yeah, it was something. Play Okafor up top. He hates it. That's the problem. I know a lot of people have made the shout that Okafor playing up top could solve the issue, but he said that he came to Leeds to play on the wing because he was tired of playing in the middle in Italy. So, could be considered a rod for our own back, but it answers that one, doesn't it? So you can't do that, which means that you need to play 2 strikers in the middle. I don't know if Piru playing off DCL works, because I don't know if Piru is mobile enough to play off the hold-up play of DCL. Piru Mecha? Again? Mecha's doing the hold-up. Is Piru really going to be the guy that runs past him? Probably not. Calvert-Lewin Mecha? Maybe, because that... I mean, it's not little man, big man. But it's littler man in terms of strength, bigger man. I don't think that's the fix either. I don't think that's the fix that Farke even goes for. Tough shit, there's roles in my job I hate, but I have to do it because they're paying my wages. Yeah, but at the same time, if he's playing incredibly pissed off, it doesn't help particularly. The thing that you don't want in a relegation season is a forward that isn't happy with their job. Because that's not going to improve their game. If Metcher is going about and thinking, okay, I might play on the left wing a little bit this season, and he's shoved in the middle, A, he's going to naturally drift out to the left, because that's what you do if you are a left winger. B, he's not going to be performing at his best. And that's not even a choice thing. That's just a morale thing. If you are not feeling great, you won't be playing at your best. 4-4-2 doesn't work. You lose the midfield fight. Badly. And if you lose the midfield in the Premier League, you lose the game. I mean, you got a point. It doesn't make a difference if you keep conceding goals like we do. And it is consistent. And we're winning it now. No! But I would rather have 3 players in the midfield to potentially do something than 2. Personally. So when it comes to the big question, it's a very, very big question, because it's the thing that people care about right now in terms of being Leeds fans. I'm going to run it as a poll. George, do you get rid now? Do you judge him on the next 4 games, or do you keep till January? And you hope that with a window, with a 10, with a right winger, with a striker, whatever we end up with, because it's going to be something attacking, or do you hope that that solves it? And this is based on what you personally believe is the thing to do. This isn't saying vote based on what you think the 49ers do. This is purely what would you do? If we get rid, then who? That's the question, isn't it? Because I don't know. 49ers didn't extend his contract. If I remember right, that was Rads. But I don't know. Get a manager that can do the job. Who? That's the thing, though, because everyone is sort of looking at the situation and going, yeah, I just signed someone better. Who is better? I saw Joe mention Marco Silva earlier. And yeah, fair enough. Marco Silva, good manager. Does he come to Leeds right now? I've seen mentions of Marco Rosa. Marco Rosa, fantastic manager. Genuinely really good stuff. When I've been working on Bundesliga things, I've spotted him from time to time. I've gone, you're really good. Does he come to Leeds in a relegation fight? I don't know. Whack him low. It does not come to Leeds right now because relegation fight. And whatever next job he wants to find will be better than that. Comfortably. That's where the issue is. Realistically, by the way, not pie in the sky, no one said Brendan Rodgers. Yeah, that's the thing. We need to be realistic when having this conversation. And if the conversation starts with whack him low, Marco Rosa, then you're immediately jumping into a situation of, okay, so there's a 2 players that we probably don't get. Shit question. If he went now, I wouldn't cry as I did after Marcel Bielsa. If he stays, I'll back him. Yeah, that's fair. But I'm not exactly going to put in a I don't care option. Just lots of good managers out there. I can't see the ball getting one if Farke goes, even if they're available. Let's have a look. Right. I'm not going to stream for a super long time from now, by the way, because I was already tired before I started, and I don't want to continue being absolutely exhausted. But let's have a look at manager free agents. Southgate, top of the list. I wouldn't go with Southgate, especially since recently Gareth Southgate said that he doesn't necessarily want to get back into management. Whack him low, again, I don't know. Xavi wouldn't come. Thiago Motta probably doesn't come. Igor Tudor probably doesn't come. Postecoglou, we don't necessarily want. Marco Rosa would be the dream, but he probably doesn't come. Ten Hag, Jesus. Edin Terzic. Terzic, I like the idea of, but I don't think comes to Leeds. And I've seen mentions of Carlos Corberán. And Carlos Corberán, I'm just going to bring up to people that will likely make the point and go, oh, he was good when he was here for the under-23s. I quite like Carlos Corberán. Manages Valencia right now, right? That Valencia. So, Pablo is in the middle of owning a football club. That's the thing. I wouldn't mind Pablo. He's done okay at Castellon, but right, this is another thing, right? People will look at Corberán and people will look at Corberán and say, you know what? If we get Corberán in, at least Radrizzani will play more because Ramazani will play more because Corberán signed him over at Valencia. Therefore, he'll play a lot. Let's have a look at his numbers. He's played 5 times. Not started once. 21 minutes per game. Where's Dick Van Dyke talking about losing Corberán? I've got a cold, okay? So, you're not even necessarily going to get the players that you want on the pitch if you end up with Carlos Corberán. Because Carlos Corberán isn't the isn't the manager that we all look at and go, oh, that's how he plays. Because time has changed. Against Betis, how did they line up? Cheeky little 4-2-3-1, right? Did okay. That's because they got Danjuma. Danjuma and Jose Kaya are carrying that side. Poch, no. Because I know that the Poch conversation is going to happen, and people will go, why can't we just get Pochettino? We got Bielsa. The difference is, Pochettino is currently managing the USA going into a home World Cup. You don't... Very obviously that isn't going to happen. Isn't Ramazani injured? He is now, but he wasn't getting minutes even when he wasn't. That's the thing. Ange would be hilarious, to be completely honest with you. Please don't put Brendan Rodgers in the list. Putting Brendan Rodgers in your list of managers is a bit of a self-report at the minute. I've got to be honest. Anyone in the Championship that can step up? That is a question. Championship managers. Phil Parkinson. No. Kieran McKenna. I don't think we pull him out of Ipswich, to be honest. I think he sees Ipswich as his home as a manager and is impossible to pull out of it. John Messina, not brilliant. Nathan Jones, no thank you. Chris Davis, I don't even know who you are. Heke, no thanks. Frank, who is never going to sign as a Leeds United manager. Then Gary Rowett, Alex Neil, Mark Robbins, John Eustace. Eustace isn't the worst, but he's not exactly who you want. Valerian Ismail is, again, not one that you necessarily want. Alan Sheehan, Rob Edwards has just signed at Borough. Has he? No. Well, ish. Then you get into Javi Gracia, Chris Wilder, Marti Cifuentes, who is already hated at Leicester, Ryan Mason. Even then, Klopp, not necessarily going to improve things. It's not going to happen anyway. But Klopp is one of those where he's always had a good side. So it doesn't necessarily work. I don't know. It's not a good spot. to be completely honest. Rowett might be a call. Rowett's currently at Oxford, I think. And if we check the Championship table, is he doing okay at Oxford? Or is he doing shit? 21st. For me, the ideal replacements, if you do replace, because again, I'm not going to be one of those people that jumps in and says we immediately need rid of Daniel Farke. We immediately need to keep him forever and give him a lifetime contract, because I'm going to, and this is going to spook people, right? This is a thing that people on the internet don't do. But throughout the remainder of this season, I'm going to be basing my thoughts on the actual evidence in front of me. I know, wild. So my opinion may change, because different things will happen as time goes on. Who's the Derby manager? Eustace, I think? Yeah, Eustace. Who's managing Hull? Jukirovic. Okay. But he's only been there 4 months, again. So he's in the category of it's quite hard to get him out because that buyout is going to be big. So for me, I'm going to base everything for the remainder of this season on evidence. I'm going to have a rough idea of, okay, cool. So I'm not ideologically pro or anti Daniel Farke. But at the moment, if it does happen, the managers I'd maybe be a little bit excited about, Terzic, Rosa. Not a whole lot more, to be honest. Watching performances is enough evidence for me. I would agree, but I don't want to jump from we're fine to get rid in a 2-week period, because again, could be a speed bump. I don't think it is a speed bump, but we'll find out. I think the second if we lose the next 2 games. Right, Sean, stop. I'm begging you, right? Please stop doing the overly inflammatory thing, because I'm already tired and have a headache. It's not a case of stick with it till it's too late. It's give it a couple more games. If, after the international break against Villa, the performance is still as dire as it was, then you say, okay, we make a change. At this point, if I'm the 49ers, I'm having conversations, because there's a pretty big chance that you might need to make a change. But the period of Villa, City, Chelsea, Liverpool, is that the right order? I don't know. That's having Daniel Farke for a bit of that isn't going to cause you a problem anyway, because you're probably not getting anything out of it even with a new manager. So I don't know. We'll find out. It's not a case of stick with it till it's too late. It's a case of do the work behind the scenes, and then on the pitch, make sure it's not a pattern. But we'll see. Yeah, I think Terzic is ideal, to be honest. But Norwich job's open makes things easier. Is it currently open? I thought they'd hired someone. I don't know. Surely 49ers have a shortlist prepared for the just in case. They will do. Every football club ownership will have a shortlist of what happens if. Like in the event that Pep Guardiola has a heart attack because he keeps being too stressed on the pitch side, City's ownership will have an idea of who they want next. But, well. Bringing a new manager to get pumped for the next 4 games seems backwards. Yeah, that's also what I'm thinking. I think you don't bring in a new manager when you are facing City, Chelsea, Liverpool, because then all the players know of that new system is getting beaten senseless. So I'd probably wait until after that anyway, because then a new manager has a reasonable foundation to build from. But we'll see. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream there. If you haven't, I'd massively appreciate you popping a like on it. I'm trying to get back into doing YouTube stuff as a habit, which would be quite nice, but I'm struggling recently because ill and busy and all that kind of stuff. I promise I'm trying to do it more, but we'll see. I'm going to leave it there. miss you, Joe. I know I've missed doing YouTube things. It's hard to get the sort of inspiration up and all that kind of stuff. But I promise I'll be trying more. Pop a like on the stream if you haven't yet. That's always massively appreciated. Subscribe if you haven't too. You can even be a channel member if you like. It's $2.99 a month, and when I do videos, I make sure they get it early all the time. So I hope you all enjoy, and I will see you all later. And my button for the end screen doesn't exist anymore, so I'm just going to press it manually on Streamlabs. Toodaloo.